Once a revered name in hip-hop, Jim Jones today finds himself at the heart of a developing scandal that can permanently ruin his career. The business has been rocked by the recent dramatic airport battle, which left both insiders and supporters equally astonished with the graphic film that has leaked. Originally a straightforward travel day, it soon spiraled out of control and resulted in an extremely violent conflict requiring intervention by security. Now, whispers of legal difficulties are getting stronger, and some sources even indicate a lawsuit might be imminent. With millions of views in only a few hours from viral videos of the incident, social media is ablaze. Everybody wants to know what actually happened. Jim Jones could be the victim or the aggressor. And why are others in the business thinking this could be the last nail in the coffin for his career? Some sources suggest that large brands and partnerships are already moving away, fearing the reaction from this public meltdown. Close friends are rushing for damage control meanwhile. But is it too late? This is a career-threatening situation that has the whole business talking, not simply another rapper caught in scandal. And when more horrifying information emerge, the question remains, can Jim Jones survive this? Or is this truly the end of the road? Buckle up, because what we're about to disclose will leave you dumbfounded. The tension in the airport had been simmering for long before it eventually exploded into chaos. Witnesses say Jim Jones came at the terminal appearing anxious, his customary swagger replaced by a strained, almost restless energy. He had been noticed pacing at the check-in counter, talking heatedly on his phone. Some admirers recognized him and contemplated approaching for a quick selfie, but something about his behavior cautioned them to stay back. His voice was fierce, his fingers grasping his phone so firmly that his knuckles became white. No one could have guessed what would happen next. At first, everything seemed normal, just another day at the airport. But then, an argument broke out. Sources suggest Jim Jones was unhappy about a seating issue, but others insist the matter was far more personal. A man in a dark hoodie, reportedly another passenger, began waving violently toward Jim. At first, Jim seemed to brush him off, saying something under his breath. But the other man wasn't backing down. Their voices grew louder, grabbing the attention of adjacent tourists who swiftly pulled out their phones to record. And then it happened, the moment that altered everything. Eyewitnesses claimed the man got too near to Jim, pointing a finger in his face. In a brief second, Jim shoved the man's hand away, and just like that, things escalated. The man replied, pushed Jim back, and within seconds, the situation burst into a full-blown battle. Luggage spilled down, passengers gasped, and security alarms blared in the background as fists started flying. One witness, a young woman who had been photographing from a distance, subsequently told reporters, "It occurred so fast. 1 minute, they were bickering, and the next, Jim simply swung. Everyone was shouting. It was unbelievable." The clip, which has since gone viral, shows Jim throwing a crushing right hook that left the man falling backward. But Jim didn't stop there. He moved forward, seizing the man's shirt and yanking him down. Screams filled the air as people backed away, scared of getting caught in the crossfire. Airport security raced in, fighting to separate them, but by then, the damage was done. The man, evidently injured, gripped his face as blood spilled onto his white t-shirt. Some bystanders called for someone to contact the police, while others simply remained still, unable to comprehend what they had just watched. Jim, breathing rapidly, was pushed back by members of his entourage, but the hatred in his eyes hadn't vanished. It was clear this wasn't simply some random battle. There was something deeper behind it. The video spread like wildfire. Within minutes, social media was awash with posts, clips, and passionate conversations about the brawl. Jim Jones is out here throwing hands like he's still in the streets. One tweet stated, "Bro's career is done after this. Lawsuit incoming." Another user remarked, posting slowed-down footage of the punch. The internet tore into the situation, with supporters split between defending Jim and denouncing his conduct. Some felt that Jim was merely defending himself, while others pointed out that, as a prominent figure, he should have handled the issue differently. But what truly sent shockwaves through the industry was the aftermath. Minutes after the altercation, airport police arrived, surrounding Jim and bringing him into a special holding area. It was evident that officials weren't taking this lightly. And then, the true bombshell dropped. Rumors circulated that the man Jim had fought was preparing to press charges. A leaked airport report revealed that the victim was claiming assault and public endangerment, which may spell major legal ramifications for Jim. That's when the whispers started. Would this fight ruin Jim his career? Industry insiders swiftly began contemplating the potential ramifications. Some sources stated that major brands and corporate partners were reconsidering their affiliation with him. Others thought that Jim's place in the music industry could be at peril, as executives began assessing if this controversy was too large to ignore. For Jim, the truth of the situation hadn't quite sunk in yet. As he sat in that airport waiting room, his mind racing, he had no idea how much worse things were about to get. The battle was merely the beginning. What happened next would shock the whole hip-hop industry. As Jim Jones waited in the airport's holding room, his mind raced with a million things. The fight had happened so fast. 1 second, it was just an argument, and the next, fists were flying. Now he was sitting in a frigid, windowless chamber, waiting for the next move from police enforcement. His phone rang incessantly in his pocket, but he couldn't check it. Security had confiscated his possessions, and all he could do was sit there, running over every potential result in his thoughts. Outside that small room, mayhem had erupted online. Social media was blazing with emotions, and major news sources had already taken up the story. Rapper Jim Jones involved in violent airport altercation. Headlines like this were plastered over entertainment blogs, with thousands of individuals voicing their opinions. One viral tweet read, "Jim Jones really risked it all at the airport? Man's too old for this. Career might not recover from this one." Another fan posted, "If this dude presses charges, Jim might be looking at a huge lawsuit. What was he even thinking?" Everywhere he turned, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, the conversation was the same. The question wasn't simply about the battle anymore. People were asking if Jim Jones' career was officially finished. But what truly turned this scenario into a full-blown disaster was what happened next. Just hours after the event, a new angle of the brawl was leaked. The earlier tapes had already cast Jim in a terrible light, but this new footage made things look even worse. In this clip, recorded from a different side of the terminal, Jim could be seen throwing the first punch. It didn't matter what had been said, what led up to it. This was the image the public would remember. The footage found its way to major news sites, and immediately, the narrative transformed. Jim wasn't just a rapper caught in a hot moment. He was now being cast as the aggressor. That's when the legal threats started coming in. The man Jim had fought, whose identity was still unknown at the time, was apparently meeting with his lawyers. Multiple insiders said that he was considering bringing assault charges, and if that happened, Jim may be looking at a long and expensive legal struggle. One entertainment lawyer even went on a podcast to discuss the possible outcomes. If this man decides to sue, Jim Jones could be in serious trouble. Given the footage and the public nature of the fight, the prosecution would have plenty of evidence to build a case. And let's not forget, the airport is federal property. If authorities decide to pursue charges on top of a lawsuit, things could develop fast. Jim's team understood they had to act swiftly. His management, publicists, and legal team were already in damage control mode. Statements were being drafted, phone calls were being made, and behind the scenes, urgent attempts were being made to reach a settlement before things became worse. But then things did get worse. Brands started pulling away. One of Jim's forthcoming business deals, a potential partnership with a luxury streetwear brand, was now under review. Sources indicated that the company wasn't sure if they wanted their name associated to someone implicated in a violent public scandal. And it didn't stop there. Music industry insiders started muttering that some of Jim's next projects might be in peril. A few significant business partners had gone silent, refusing to comment on whether they would still be working with him following this episode. Some fans stayed loyal, backing Jim and saying that the whole situation was being blown out of proportion. Man was defending himself. "Y'all act like you've never seen a fight before," one person remarked under a video of the confrontation. But some weren't so forgiving. "This ain't 2005. The industry doesn't accept this type of turmoil anymore. One wrong move and your career can disappear fast," another tweet stated. Jim Jones had been in the game long enough to know how rapidly public opinion might swing. He had seen it happen to other artists. Before, one moment they were at the top, and the next, they were being blacklisted. Was this fight going to be the moment that ruined everything for him? As his team rushed to put out the fire, another unexpected twist appeared. Someone had leaked more details about the man Jim battled. According to a new claim, the man wasn't just a regular passenger. He had ties to the music industry. Rumors started flying that he was an up-and-coming music executive, someone with connections to major musical labels. If it was true, then this scenario wasn't simply a legal nightmare. It might also portend disaster for Jim's industry contacts. His relationships in the company had always been one of his biggest assets. If news got out that he had attacked someone influential, doors could start closing. The stakes were increasing bigger by the hour. Now, Jim wasn't simply facing a lawsuit. He wasn't only dealing with public backlash. His entire career was hanging in the balance. And the worst part, this was simply the beginning. Jim Jones sat in the backseat of his blacked-out SUV, staring blankly out the window as the city lights blurred past him. His crew had finally managed to get him out of the airport without additional trouble, but the damage was already done. His phone, which he had finally received back from security, was a disaster. Hundreds of missed calls, unread texts, and social media notifications bursting up. Everyone wanted to know what had truly happened, but at this point, even Jim wasn't sure how to spin the issue. His lawyer had made one thing clear: staying silent wasn't an option. The leaked footage of him delivering the first punch had already cast him as the aggressor, and if he didn't confront it immediately, the public narrative would be etched in stone. But the difficulty was, any remark he made would have legal ramifications. If the man he fought did decide to seek charges, Jim's own remarks may be used against him. As he glanced over Twitter, his heart fell. The headlines were getting worse by the hour. Jim Jones' violent outburst caught on camera, legal action looming. Industry insiders say Jim Jones' career is hanging by a thread after airport fight. Could this be the end of Jim Jones' legacy? Everyone had an opinion, and none of them were good. But then, Jim observed something even more disturbing. A familiar name was suddenly embroiled in the scandal minus 50 Cent. 50 had never been one to hold back, especially when it came to clowning other rappers, and Jim Jones was no exception. He had already shared a parody on Instagram, taking a screenshot from the airport battle and accompanying it. "Damn, Jimmy, you out here catching fades at TSA. Career ain't looking too good, my guy. Hashtag shoulder check it that attitude too." It was vintage 50, publicly humiliating someone when they were already down. And it worked. The post got millions of views, and suddenly, the situation had escalated from serious to straight-up embarrassing. But it didn't stop there. Within hours, other rappers started weighing in. Some made jokes, some distanced themselves, and a few truly defended Jim. But one thing was clear: his name was in every conversation. A well-known hip-hop podcast invited on an industry insider who claimed to have exclusive insights about what went down before the fight. "I heard Jim wasn't even meant to be on that aircraft. He was already furious over something else, and this dude said the wrong thing. It just popped off." Another visitor added, "Word on the street is that the guy he hit is related to some major figures in the industry. If he wants to, he could make sure Jim never gets another job again." That was the true fear now. Legal troubles were one thing, but being blackballed? That was a death sentence in the industry, and the biggest clue that Jim might be in severe trouble. His business partners had gone silent. Before the fight, Jim had been in talks for a new collaboration with a big liquor brand, a deal that could have been worth millions. But now, no response, no calls back, nothing. a high-profile booking agent who had been working on obtaining a new tour for Jim, also wasn't replying. It was clear people were waiting to see how this played out before they committed to working with him again. But the worst blow came later that night. Just as Jim was trying to figure out his next step, a new lawsuit was officially revealed. The man from the airport, who had eventually been recognized as Trey Mitchell, a rising music executive, was taking legal action. His lawyers had just filed an assault complaint, claiming physical injuries and emotional distress. According to the official statement, Mr. Mitchell received injuries due to the unprovoked attack by Mr. Jones. We are seeking damages for medical bills, anguish, and suffering, as well as punitive damages. This was precisely what Jim had anticipated. The lawsuit ensured this mess wasn't going away anytime soon. Now, every major media organization had a fresh perspective to run with. And worse, there were now indications that officials were considering bringing criminal charges. If that happened, Jim wouldn't just be dealing with a civil case. He could be facing actual jail time. His crew immediately went into full crisis mode. His lawyer was already drafting a response, hoping to settle the complaint before it evolved into an even bigger media frenzy. His PR staff started working on an official statement, anything that would make Jim look like the victim instead than the aggressor. And behind the scenes, his people were going out to every length they had to make sure the issue didn't become worse. But there was one snag. Jim Jones wasn't adept at staying quiet. All of this had made him angry. The way the media was twisting the narrative, the way people in the industry were turning on him, the way 50 Cent was out here making jokes like this wasn't serious. So, against his team's advice, Jim did what he always did when he had something to say. He went on Instagram Live. Sitting in his dimly lit home studio, a beer in one hand and his phone in the other, Jim let free. Y'all seriously out here acting like I'm the evil guy? Like I ain't been in this game, doing my business, keeping solid? Man, let me tell y'all something. Y'all don't know half of what actually went down at that airport. He took a sip, shaking his head. First off, that dude was talking reckless, disrespecting me to my face like I was expected to just take it. Nah, y'all wouldn't have. Don't act like y'all wouldn't have reacted the same way. Then he got very direct. And to all these so-called industry people acting strange now, pulling back offers, pretending like they don't know me. Bet, keep that same energy. I don't need y'all. The live stream went viral instantaneously. Some individuals supported him, claiming he was standing his ground. Others thought he had just made things even worse. One thing was for sure, this wasn't over. If Jim thought the drama was peaking now, he had no idea what was coming next. Jim Jones might have thought his Instagram Live outburst would clarify the air, but instead, it did the opposite. The video spread like wildfire, making headlines across every major gossip site. Jim Jones defends airport fight, blames the industry for his fallout. Jim Jones' emotional rant, career in freefall? Did Jim Jones just ruin his own legal defense? The backlash was instantaneous. His legal team was incensed. The instant he concluded the live, his lawyer called him up, voice tense with frustration. Jim, what the hell was that? We're trying to make you look remorseful, not combative. Jim scoffed. Man, you saw how they was talking about me. I had to say something. And now you've given them more ammo. Do you even realize what you just did? You admitted to the fight. You virtually justified it. If they pursue for criminal charges, that video is Exhibit A. That part hit Jim hard. He wasn't worried of lawsuits. He had money for that. But jail time, that was a different story. And then things got worse. The man he fought, Trey Mitchell, broke his silence. Trey published a public statement, carefully worded by his PR team. It was calm, methodical, and painted him as the victim. I never anticipated a simple quarrel to turn violent. I love Jim's reputation in hip-hop, but no one should have to fear for their safety. I just hope the industry holds everyone to the same standard of accountability. That was the final blow. Jim had lashed out, but Trey had played it smart. Now, Jim was looking like the risky one, while Trey was earning popular sympathy. And then came the worst possible news. His lawyer contacted him again, but this time, his tone wasn't just impatient. It was serious. "Jim, the DA is looking into this. If they move forward with criminal charges, you might be facing assault charges. Depending on how hard they go, there's a genuine risk of jail time." Jim felt his stomach slump. "How real we talking?" "They've got the film. They got your statement from IG Live. And now, with Trey's legal team pressing, they could want to make an example out of you." For the first time since the battle, Jim felt actual terror. If he went locked up, even for a little time, it would change everything. His sponsorship deals? Gone. His touring opportunities? Done. His reputation? Destroyed. And that's when reality really hit him. The industry was already moving on. Just days ago, Jim's name had been all over hip-hop blogs, but now, the headlines were moving. A new rap beef had started. A celebrity couple had broken up. A major album was dropping. And just like that, his scandal was dissipating. But that wasn't a nice thing, because that meant people weren't waiting around to see if he'd recover. They were merely leaving him behind. His phone, previously buzzing incessantly, was suddenly quiet. Industry buddies who had been backing him? Silent. Even his own squad was starting to lose faith. One of his closest business partners, who had been handling a large brand contract, gave him a short but devastating text. "Bro, they're pulling out. They don't want the bad press. We'll talk later." Jim hurled his phone across the room. He had built his whole career on being respected in the game, on becoming someone people couldn't ignore. And now he was one bad court ruling away from being just another fallen rapper. He had one last move left. Damage control. The next morning, Jim's staff put together a formal statement, properly prepared, well rehearsed. This time, he wasn't going live. He wasn't making passionate rants. Instead, they sent out an apology video. Sitting in a neutral location, no jewelry, no dazzling background, just Jim looking serious. "I want to take a moment to address everything that's been happening. I regret how things escalated at the airport. It was never my plan for things to turn physical. I let my emotions get the best of me, and for that, I apologize." He took a long breath. "I'd also want to acknowledge Trey Mitchell. We've had chats behind the scenes, and I hope we can both move ahead in a way that's beneficial." Of course, it was a lie. He and Trey hadn't talked, but it didn't matter. The industry needed to hear this. "I love this culture, and I know I have to do better. I'm taking this as a lesson, and I hope y'all can grow with me." The video was strategic, nor too apologetic, nor too aggressive. Just the ideal balance to have people start rethinking the story. And it worked, sort of. Some blogs started modifying their headlines. "Jim Jones takes accountability after airport incident." "Jim Jones apology. Is redemption possible?" But some weren't convinced. "Too little, too late." Some fans say Jim Jones' apology isn't enough. It was damage control, but it wasn't enough to bring him back entirely, because his biggest problem wasn't just public opinion, it was his legal case. And just when Jim thought things couldn't get worse, his lawyer called again. "Jim, I need you to sit down for this." "What now?" "Trey's legal team has filed for a settlement demand. It's high. And if we don't pay up, they're pressing for criminal charges." Jim clenched his jaw. They had him cornered. If he paid, it was an admission of guilt. If he didn't, he may be facing actual time. And the worst part? The industry was watching. Because if he couldn't recover from this, if he couldn't rehabilitate his image, then Jim Jones, the legend, the icon, would be finished. And the only issue left was, would he survive this scandal? Or was this the end of his career for good? And just like that, Jim Jones finds himself at the crossroads of his career. Will he fight the legal battle and clear his name, or will the pressure drive him to settle and accept the consequences? The industry is watching, the fans are debating, and one wrong move might be the downfall of everything he's achieved. But what do you think? Is Jim Jones being unfairly targeted, or did he bring this disaster upon himself? Will he bounce back stronger, or is this the final chapter of his legacy? Drop your opinions in the comments below. And if you want to stay current on all the twists and turns of this developing drama, be sure to like, subscribe, and switch on notifications so you never miss an update. Because trust me, this narrative is far from ended.